Lifter-Uppers. I'm Deb Krier, the co-host of Cancer and Comedy, where our mission is to heal cancer-impacted people through hope and humor, something we like to call turning the grim into a grin. Well, today on Cancer and Comedy, we're going to talk about how to maintain a sense of normalcy and routine when coping with cancer. Now, here's the host of the Cancer and Comedy podcast, Dr. Brad Miller.
Hey, Deb. Wonderful to be with you and our lifter-uppers here in the Cancer and Comedy podcast, where we look to offer a sense of hope and humor for people impacted by cancer. And we just invite folks to go to our website, cancerandcomedy.com/follow, and to be a part of the community, because that's really what we like to do, to develop a sense of community, helping people to indeed cope with hope, what we'd like to call turning the grim of cancer into the grin of a fulfilled life, and get people connected in that way. Hey, Deb, it's the first of the year. How about a couple of kind of New Year's resolution style dad jokes? Are you ready for them?
Ooh, that sounds good.
I think I'm going to start on the all almond diet.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know.
All almond?
I don't know. It's just nuts. It's just nuts. So but I tell you what, I am terrified of elevators, and I think I'm going to start taking steps to avoid them.
Cute. I love it. Well, folks, as you know, you'll get another one of these wonderful jokes after our discussion. But then, of course, we have the very important Faith It or Break It segment. Well, we would love for you to be a part of our Cancer and Comedy community, where together we crush cancer with a message of how to cope with hope and humor. Please follow Cancer and Comedy at cancerandcomedy.com/follow.
Well, indeed, it's good to be with us. We're recording this towards the start of a new year, and people begin to think about, okay, what can I do to, change my life to the better? But also, sometimes people think about, okay, what has happened in terms of what has happened to me that I need to adjust? And sometimes things happen to us that we don't expect. And certainly cancer is one of those. Cancer is one of those unexpected things which throws us off our game. And today I thought we'd talk, Deb, you and I, about establishing normalcy when your normal plan has been disrupted. And then how can you find a new normal or find some way to navigate all that kind of thing? And I thought about this just really yesterday when I had lunch with a couple of folks from my church after church. And it was interesting, a couple of people that I find myself having lunch with. One was a woman who was talking about how her life was disrupted when her mother had breast cancer, and she had to kind of change her routine and end up leaving her job and taking care of her mother more.
Wow.
And she left the church she attended, which is the church she and I attend now, to go to her mother's church just to help her mother feel comfortable. And then she ended up coming back to the church that we attend. But she adjusted her life because of that to help her mom feel more normal and comfortable. But interestingly enough, we sat at the same table with a 18-year-old young man who just was back from his first semester of college, where he had gone off to college and ostensibly to be, among other things, a pretty, he was going to be a soccer player. He was a really accomplished soccer player, and he went off to play soccer at this college, and he found out after this first semester that he's finding he's having to grow up a little bit. This world not just soccer anymore. It's got about academic studies, and he's interested in other things, the arts and so on. And he's not quite as enamored with soccer as he once was. He still plays it, and he likes it, but he's finding himself adjusting to a different, to college life, more of an adult life. And so what made me think about how, things do change. And so how do we adjust to them? So I kind of also begs the question, what is normal? So I'm going to throw that back at you, Deb. What do you think normal is, and put in the context of coping with cancer?
Is there really normal? But I think we really do have normal. We've got our routines. We get up, we go to work, we fix dinner, we do laundry on Thursday. We go to our friend's house every Saturday to play cards, whatever it is. And maybe it's more that we have routines as opposed to things that are normal. But we like that, right? Because we don't like change. And when something falls out of that, and so it's not normal, it tends to upset us. And for some people, they obviously deal with it much better than others. But yeah, we don't like it when our little apple carts get messed up.
I think you make a good point, because what is normal? I think normal is really change is normal, in the sense of that life does change even when we don't expect it. And I love what you said about routines. However, we can kind of keep some sort of routine going, about, I'm live in the world where, a lot of my contemporaries have retired in the last few years. I'm just talking to a person, my wife's getting ready to retire this in a couple months, and talked to a couple of friends of mine who are just retired or getting ready to retire. And the people who seem to be doing well are the ones who still maintain some sort of routine.
Right.
They don't, if they used to get up at 6 a.m., they don't sleep till noon now. They still get up at 6 a.m. and do something, and they are engaged with something that is purposeful in life. So I think those routines are good. And yet these other things come in, like cancer, or a profound health-related thing, which kind of dominates and oversees everything like that, and helps us to, it kind of upsets the routine even, that sort of thing. So I think it's important that we establish ways in order to achieve some sense of normalcy or routine in our life. And there's a couple of things I think that we can do that, and that is to not dwell on the past too much, but to continue to plan for a future, even if the future is going to change.
Right.
What do you think about that? Do you think that's kind of a good thing to do?
Well, I think we crave that normalcy, and so planning for the future is part of that. We always plan for the future, and so we want to continue doing that. I think what upsets us the most is when we feel that loss of control, and not having our schedules the way they want. It's funny. I looked at my schedule for the week, and this is a very weird week. I have no appointments out of my house. I work from home. I have no appointments out of my house the entire week. No doctor's appointments, no blood draws, no anything. And that's very unusual. And it was weird because it kind of threw me off. I was like, what am I missing? And so it's kind of, we get used to having to deal with it. And then when we don't, it throws us off. But I think we do, as they say, creatures of habit, right? And, we want to know every Tuesday at 2, we do this. My husband retired in August, and he's developed a routine that he does every day. He gets up, he walks the dogs, he works out, he does all sorts of things. And, and when that is his new normal, is to be able to do that. And then, everything else comes around that. But I think we like having at least a little bit of control. And when we have something like cancer, we feel very much out of control.
Yeah. I think there's certain things that we can do, and I believe that to take control of what we can control. For instance, one of those things that we can do is to nurture, maintain, or build new community, with other people or some sort of entities. That's what we're trying to do here on the Cancer and Comedy Podcast, develop a community of people who have a like-mindedness, that they are going to cope with hope and humor. And so that's what we hope to people can do. But I think it's important that we're intentional about that. Do you not feel that the same
definitely.
way? That we don't let that slide. If our normalcy has been upset, let's be intentional about maintaining relationships and building community.
Right.
How's that impacted you in terms of building or getting new community?
I think building a new community has been extremely helpful for me. Our support system, our friends, whatever we want to call it, I think we do need that. And especially when we're going through cancer, whether it's that we have it or we're a caregiver, we need those people in our lives that are going to help us out. And maybe it's just that they're going to give us a laugh for the day. That's perfectly fine. Or maybe they're going to drive us to an appointment or, take the dog to the vet or do whatever. We need our community now more than ever to provide that support. And it's funny, I tell people I have a normal, my new normal.
You made up your own term, haven't you? I
made up my own term. And and that happens with everything, like we said, you retire. Well, you develop a new normal. You have, your kids grow up and go off to college. You have a new normal.
Right.
You change jobs. You have a new normal. But again, I think it is something that people crave to do. And when they don't, that's where we see them. I think you have issues with mental health, with getting sick, all of those things. I mean, just look at COVID when everybody's routines were thrown off.
Hell yeah.
There were a lot of major health issues during that time.
I think you make a very good point there about that. And I think one of the things that we can do is this whole area of self-care, be much more intentional of self-care. If your health has been threatened by cancer or your life has been in upheaval, like I mentioned the woman earlier her life was in upheaval because she had to go take care of her mom who had breast cancer. And but you need to take care of yourself. That means your mental health life. It means your physical health life. It means sleeping and eating and properly and staying engaged with the world. Because I think that has to do with a happy, choosing to be happy in life, even when things may be disrupted. And give yourself permission to do what makes you happy. It might be, watching Netflix or, going shopping or hiking, whatever it is for you.
Right. And it's also interesting that people around us want us to get our lives back to normal also, because they don't want to think about that. I had a friend who I hadn't seen him in a while, but he knew obviously what was going on. And I saw him again for the first time after a couple of years. And he said, "So, you still dealing with that cancer thing or are you over it?" Almost like you would say a cold, right? You still have a cold or are you better? And I looked at him and I said, "No, I'll have the cancer thing the rest of my life." And then he didn't know what to do, right? What do you say to that? But it was just, are you still dealing with that cancer thing?
Well, I think, what that tells me though, Deb, I think I'll just throw this back as a real affirmation of you and what you're about, in as much as apparently to this person, it was his relationship with you was no longer focused on that. It was focused on who you are as a person and other interaction you had, socially or business or wise or whatever. And I think that's what I think is about embracing the positivity over the negativity. I know one of the things, I'll just be quite honest about this, in my 43 years of being a minister, there were certain things I really loved about it and certain things I kind of dreaded about it. And one of the things I dreaded about it was visiting certain people at home in the hospital who could only complain about their health or their ailment or their doctor's appointments or their medications. Or everything was always about that. That was the only real topic.
Oh, woe is me.
It was the only real topic of discussion. And I would sometimes, that would drain my energy. And so, it's important. And I wanted to be a part of the conversation, but not everything. And because I would sometimes try to change the topic. I would see a picture of a family member in the room and I would say, is that your grandson over there? What's he up to? And that kind of stuff, and try to change the topic. But certain people always would go back to, all right, my...
I'm never going to see my grandson again.
So I think this goes to the point of we choose how we deal with this. And I think the
Yes.
story you told about your friend means that, hey, you still deal with that cancer thing, meaning, their perspective on it was not that total focus. So
Right.
I think this has to do with an attitude that removes negativity about it, and or at least it diminishes the negativity and accentuates the positive things in your life. You think I think that's a choice that we make.
It is. It is definitely a choice. And we're going to have the negatives. And it's, and we've talked about this before. It's very important to acknowledge those and feel those. When we push those off, they tend to blow up on us later, right?
Right.
And so it's okay to I'm having a bad day, or I'm not going to make it to see so and so's wedding or graduation or whatever. But then it's okay. What can I do between now and then? And things. I'm always very moved when I see the things where, like, someone knew they were not going to make it. One that I saw was a woman. She knew she was going to pass away when her children were still very small, and she recorded a video for each child that they would be shown on each birthday. And it was, I am so glad that you're 16. You now get to drive. Please pay attention to your father, and things like that. And, it was bittersweet because I'm sure, but they said those kids so looked forward to those videos, even though it was very hard to see them, because she wasn't there in person. But, what can we do to do all those things? You always have several homework things for me to do. And one of them was somebody dealing with cancer in a child. And I love this. They talked about the fact that normal to a child equates to being safe.
Yes.
And I thought that was so interesting. And I think it's also important, maybe the parent has cancer. So you try and make things as normal as possible so your kids feel safe. And normal does mean safe. And I really liked that idea.
I love that as well, and noticed that in some of the materials that we were looking at regarding this episode, that I think it has to do with doing what we can to create an environment that is nurturing, rather than rather than diminishing, and that to me, so. The normal may or may not be what you're used to or what you even expected, but it can be how we frame it, how we kind of look at things. And so you mentioned about when a child has cancer, or when a parent or children deal with a parent having cancer and that type of thing. I think if whatever people can do to help there to be some sense of growth in the midst of the midst of things that are very, very painful, are helpful to be a framework that is normal, how you deal with things. Because, actually the cycle of life and even disease and death are part of our world here.
Right.
And
they're going to happen no matter what.
They're going to happen. So so the point of what you mentioned earlier, it just it doesn't do anybody good to be in denial or to really be focused on the negativity. And so I just want to encourage our lifter-uppers to find your new normal by your attitude and by embracing something that's really good here.
Right. And you are not, we've talked about this before, you are not your diagnosis. It is just a very small part or big part of what's going on. And so trying to do the normal things help minimize it, right? You still have date night. You still do laundry on Thursday.
That's right.
Whatever it is, just cancer's just a part of what's going on in your life. It shouldn't consume you.
Well, it shouldn't shut down your functionability. If it shuts down your functions, I told you your mental and your capacity. If you have a capacity to do laundry, then you should do it. And otherwise, then you have not just the diseases claimed you, but the disease has claimed your mental health and your emotional well-being.
Right.
And certainly we believe in an approach here, what they sometimes call humorous therapy, or therapeutic humor and hope, which has to do with, it's all about an attitude that helps you to regain a sense of vitality and health. And you can be vital to the end, right? You can be vital to the end. So good. Well, you're awesome, Deb. I think you're a great example of this as someone who has exhibited taking bad circumstances and making new normals out of those. And then that's why people, that you mentioned earlier, have seen you and said, hey, we're just having a normal relationship. That cancer thing.
The cancer thing can't be any part of it.
It's kind of in the rearview mirror, but good.
I love it. And same with you. It's just a part of your life. And, it's there, but everything else goes on.
No, it's like we like to say, a cheerful heart is good medicine. We say that because we mean in the sense of how we approach things matters. How we approach it matters. And so when we think of new normal, I would like to help people to think of not what was in the past, like what we used to do.
What we've lost.
Or the pain or whatever, but developing a new normal of what is possible and what can be.
I love it.